Welcome to Authentic Storytelling. I'm your host, Linda Joy, Mindset Elevation Coach, Storytelling Guide, and publisher of Divine Synchronicity, Women's Stories of Magic, Miracles, and Manifesting. And as I've been sharing in this whole series, this series is about bringing you women, empowered women who were courageous enough to share their stories. And in every story, including my special guest here today, you learn the wisdom, the lessons, the transformation that they experienced writing their sacred soul story. But through each woman's conversation, you're going to see the power of changing your inner narrative so you can craft a new story that supports you in living your best life. So with me today is an old friend, a dear friend. I've published her many times in my books, in Aspire magazine, and it's Crystal Cockerham is with me today. Crystal is a spiritual mentor, feminine wisdom teacher, and author who works with empathic women to deepen their relationship with the divine, learn their soul's language, and hone their empathic gifts so they can create the divinely inspired life that they envision, desire, and deserve. She works with women in sacred circle setting, as well as individually, both virtually and in person, through spiritual and transformational retreats, red tents, moon circles, and more. And you can learn more at crystalcockerham.com. All her details are in the show notes. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you for that. Yes, I love being here.
I think now more than ever, when we share our stories, women can see that they're not alone. There's nothing wrong with them. They may be caught up in a story, and this whole series and all the books I publish is about letting women see the truth, the courage, the vulnerability of each other's stories really can help support us. So I always start by sharing a quote from each woman's story. And Crystal's quote is, "There's magic in the moment when everything, including time, seems to stand still, where you can see and feel the energies around you as if the air is electrically charged." I love that. I just like the energy of it. So what would you say, Crystal, is the key theme or life lesson shared in your story entitled The Labyrinth?
Mm. Um, there really truly is so much wrapped up into it. But trying to put it into a seed is it's not lost on me that my experience and this story, which was not the story I signed on that I was planning to write, right, happened at a labyrinth. So the theme is really like surrendering and going within and trusting that the divine truly has your back. It has your front, it has your sides underneath you. It's all around you all the time. And, for us, it is really, it's a surrendering moment where we open, and that surrender is not a giving up. The surrender is what I've been doing isn't working. I trust that you're going to give me the divine guidance that I am missing, that I haven't yet allowed myself to receive. And then just opening up to the power of the possibility of what that guidance is.
I love that because we've known each other a long time. Trusting and allowing is feminine energy, right? And
Yeah.
you know that that's your specialty. What I've learned on my own journey is I had to give up being micromanager of the divine, right? Trying to control and want every single answer before I would step forward and trust. It would be like, show me steps A through Z with a complete timeline, all my steps, and then I'll take action. And trusting and allowing divine wisdom to drop in is like, no, I'm going to listen. And it's trusting that the next step will be revealed, just even if it's a micro one. Doesn't it bring so much peace like, to me, it's a much more peaceful way to live than when I used to try to push and force myself through life.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in that doer energy and the go, 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 I need to complete my list, I need to do this, and then this is the next step. It's so chaotic and frenetic that it's way too easy for that to become this false projection of us, covering up who we're protecting inside, right?
That,
So
that
when
really resonates because that's how I was in my 20s and 30s, 100 miles an hour, never took time to just be. Actually, I was afraid to be. And I see now that my doing, which is that masculine energy, and there's nothing wrong with that, ladies, when it's in balance. We want masculine and feminine. But back then, looking back, I can see that my 100 miles an hour, do, chase, 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 strive, 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 was coming from a wound because I was afraid to be alone with myself. I didn't even know how to be alone with myself. And it's funny now that the family calls me a hermit because I love being in community, in family, and with myself. So I love that you said that we can get caught up in it, right? And it becomes a pattern as it did for me. And you raised your hand, so it sounds
Oh,
like you had that experience too.
yeah. I was a very young mother of three, and there was for me, there was no saying no to letting them have experiences, and I wanted to give them everything I possibly could, right? So it was literally I poured everything I could into rearing good, healthy, happy kids, right? Um, and and I also went through college at that time. So there was periods where I did knowing in hindsight, I did some damage to myself where I would go 2 or 3 days at a time without sleeping. How else was I going to write that paper? How else was I going to get the research done? How else was I going to make the lunches and go to hockey practice?
And so many women can relate to that, Crystal, because we put
Yeah.
ourselves at the end of our to-do list. But when you start to go into trust and flow and listening, I found everything softens in my life. My relationships flowed instead of, because I'm fully present, instead of, there's so many benefits to leaning in and trusting, which is how we started this conversation. So let's go to question number 2. How did your writing, and as I shared, ladies, I've published Crystal in numerous books, but today we'll just talk about the story, The Labyrinth. How did writing your soul story in divine synchronicity heal, empower, or inspire you on your self-discovery journey?
Um, it actually, so what was different about this story is it hadn't already happened when I said, sure, I'm going to, be part of this sacred, awesome, yummy next Linda Joy book project, right? Like as I mentioned, I had something different I was going to write. And this experience, this story, it was the first time, one, that I wrote about something that happened so close to my writing, because it was literally less than 2 months of my writing. And then the struggle was all the different timelines that happen in the story, right? It was kind of like time jumping, which honestly was challenging and fun. But on a healing level, um, it really kept me in it. And because it was so close, it both held me accountable to myself and owning the blessings that I received on that walk, that labyrinth walk. And yet it also primed me for a personal journey that I went through at the end of last year.
It was like it was a inner preparation for what was still to come, even though you may not have known it in the moment of writing and in that experience that you wrote about. You've been in other books. Did you find that in the past that writing the story and going back into the energy of the experience that you had kind of two things, heals the leftover remnants of that story, because we all have stories, ladies, all of us.
Yeah.
And then almost like was a shedding, but as you shared, this story was so close to the experience that you wrote about that it was healing, but you were still in it. Where the other stories that you and other authors wrote about were from further back in their past. So you had like a unique experience because it was so close to the actual experience.
Yeah.
So
what's funny is the parallels between this one and the other stories. And I think I'm going to just kind of pull on that first one, Shine, the Shine book. So when I wrote Shine, it was absolutely because that was all about huge fear and how it had really stopped me in my tracks in my waking up moment, right? And so that the process of writing that story was, it allowed me to see how far I had come, right? And then I turned the edits in, and Deb, she is so amazing. I love Deb. Boy, that woman, I sometimes I feel like she deserves a trophy because she sent me back my feedback, right? And I'm like, no, this is not what the story is about. Everybody wants to know more about that instead of what I'm trying to explain. And so it was like this whole other like, okay. And so it was just like this next layer of like releasing that process, so to speak. And so with this book, I had come through a lot of layers of the healing of what incited my experience in the labyrinth. And this was like the final clearing. No, I'm releasing you of that burden, that it is no more. And the experience itself and the energetic imprint that it had on me really, really, truly was that container for my recent journey that I began towards the end of last year.
I just,
Yeah.
you know, you started the conversation about the divine supporting us on all sides, right?
Mhm.
I look back at the stories you've written for us in other books, and to have you here now, it's like I watched the divine support you through some of your most challenging, difficult times, and I know, and I want all our viewers to hear this, that we are always divinely protected, supported, and loved. Our ego gets in the way because it's not happening the way we want. But the divine is all knowing. Whatever you call your source of love, God, divine, universe, please replace any word I'm using with your source of love, right? The name you give that. And to watch you go through like the labyrinth story in the writing of it while you had just experienced it all was so beautiful to watch because you kept flowing in that sense of trust. And again, not knowing that that whole journey would prepare you for what was to come in your life, right? And things you had to face. Do you look back now to that the time when you were experiencing the labyrinth event, right? And go, oh, I see you were preparing me, right?
Oh yeah. These last few months have been the receiving. It wasn't so much, well, it was the receiving, but it was the acknowledging the worthiness of myself,
Yeah.
that receiving, and for the divine showing up in those ways, that even though I know it exists and I have experienced it,
Numerous.
and they're in different ways, it really brought them, I felt trusted and held it so much differently, that, as I mentioned, it really truly became the container of hope for me, right? And I think in the end, it's hope and faith and trust and love. Because when we feel like we are exasperated, when we feel like we're in huge fear and we're like, come on, really? We're so entrenched in it that we don't realize it's always all around us, right? And we aren't alone.
That's the biggest thing, but something you've said quite a few times, and then we'll go to the final question, is you mentioned receiving, and then in conversation, you mentioned worthiness. And I know from personal experience, and ladies, you too, if you have trouble receiving a compliment, receiving love, receiving a gift, whatever it may be, if you really have trouble, my issue was I hadn't owned my worth. I hadn't owned my worth, right? We are worthy of receiving whatever it may be. And so I just wanted to capture that because you stated it so beautifully throughout the conversation. So I'm going to go to our final question. As we come to a close, what's a piece of wisdom, a sacred reminder that you would love to leave our viewers with today?
Well, it's twofold, and the one I have touched on, and that is that hope, right? When something comes up again, it's because the first time we've gone through it, we cleared everything we could with that expression of ourselves. And as we continue to evolve and we continue to walk our path, we become newer and improved and, more wide open. So then we can handle like that next layer or that final like seeding. I mean, I can tell you that was the beginning for me. Like it totally cleared out the energy of my intentional, what I was asking for, right? But it also set me up for a complete and total death and rebirth phase, which it has been, I do feel challenged. It's been hard, but it's also allowed me to be fully present and to see and feel all the little things around. So the quote that you read at the beginning about feeling when you're fully present and feeling almost like time is standing still while it's still moving, and like where you can like reach out, almost like grab the air and feel the charge as you are being up-leveled is not the right word.
I know what you mean, elevated.
Elevated,
Your
yes.
essence being elevated, your trust is being elevated.
You can literally feel your frequency shift.
Yeah, I just love that feeling.
Yes, and these are things that people will say, oh, but that's magical and that's esoteric. It's real. If you let yourself believe it, it is real. It's not some wooey pie in the sky thing that's only for certain people. Every single one of us has the worthiness and the ability to experience that.
And that's a beautiful reminder for everyone. Every woman that you're meeting through the authentic storytelling or reading a copy of Divine Synchronicity, Women's Stories of Magic, Miracles, and Manifesting, we bring our stories to you to remind you that everything is accessible to you too. The divine, the wisdom, the energy, accessing your truth, happiness, joy, inner peace. It is all there. You just got to watch the story you're telling yourself that's convincing yourself that it's not there, because we all get what we focus on. And Crystal, I want to say thank you for sharing your story, The Labyrinth in Divine Synchronicity. And I want to invite everyone, check out the show notes. You can visit Crystal at crystalcockerham.com. And thank you, my friend. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Blessings, everyone.